What's going on, guys? Seth and Chevy here. We just watched episode 5 of Trigun Stampede. We're going full spoilers ahead, so let's just talk recap real fast. We're moving forward. They're heading towards July, that being Nicholas, who everyone's calling Wolfwood now, so I'm just going to call him that from now on. Wolfwood, Vash, Meryl, and Roberto are all heading to July, and they, on the way there, come upon a dead carcass. And during the ride, talked about kind of some lore in the area of some kind of monster that had taken a bunch of people out in a town. And yeah, so while they are kind of investigating the carcass, they find a town they go into, and they eventually are pursued by some kind of giant mechanical beast guy through a lot of kind of story jumping from two different timelines. We find out that this dude who's pursuing Vash, this giant Bane-looking dude who has machine guns for hands, is this kid Rollo who he met when he was younger. And he tried to help Rollo, but was not able to do that because Rollo in his town was selected to essentially be experimented on by the doctor and the little blonde chick who are part of now Nye's group. They injected him with some stuff, and they turned him into some kind of super soldier, and kind of fits with the lore of what they're talking about in the car, where there's this beast that killed the whole town, because we see a scene from back then where he comes home and I assume kills his mom. And that's probably the beginning of his rampage, because the town now is completely destroyed. So yeah, he's chasing after them. Wolfwood is trying to combat him while also trying to get Vash to do something, while Vash is just running as he does. In the moment when we're seeing him running from him, we don't quite understand the full story yet, but we kind of get the picture eventually on why he is trying to not kill Rollo, because he told him a long time ago that he would protect him, and he obviously was unable to do that. Eventually, after a lot of the pursuit that happens, he is able to get his hands on Vash and starts slamming into a wall over and over and over again, while Wolfwood has been trying to catch up. He eventually does, shoots Rollo in the head, dropping him, and Vash is very upset by this because he's trying to save him, in which Wolfwood says this was a mercy kill, and he would never have gotten his humanity back anyway, so he essentially put him down. Definitely a difference in the way that's viewed. And then, yeah, we get a scene where the doctor is informed that Rollo is defeated, and then we get it hinted that Rollo is just one of many of the Doctor's creations, and they hint at Wolfwood being another one. So we're getting even more stuff in the air about who this character is, what his ambitions are, because in the last episode we saw that he's in some way connected with the weird worm summoning person. Yeah, and so now we know that he is in some way connected as well with the Doctor and these people who are part of Nye's group. So yeah, that's the simple version of what we saw. What did we think of it?
I think this episode was like really smartly put together. Even with the foreshadowing, with him telling that story, and Vash just sleeping the whole time until he started like getting into the details with the story. And there's like this moment where he's awake and like paying attention to the story. It doesn't mean anything until you finish the episode, and then you're like, oh.
Almost everything in this episode doesn't mean anything until you finish the episode, because in the beginning I'm like, what are we even doing?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here? And then, when like the pursuit's happening, I'm just like, yeah, it's cool looking, but like, where's this even going? Is this the whole episode? And then by the end I was like, oh, everything was like intentional.
Yeah. Also, I mean, after 5 episodes now of watching Orange's 3D animation, I'm very curious to see what else they've made at this point, because like the show is like really good looking. Yeah. The animation is ridiculously smooth, and they really play with a lot of like cinematic angles and stuff like that, and like movie tricks and stuff like that, like when the kids run through the desert and the screen's slowly getting smaller and stuff.
Yeah, it was the first thing I thought when that part happened. I'm like, oh, that was pretty cinematic looking.
Yeah, and then even like moments where like the sand is slowly like coming in, to signify that kid's screwed after he drops him off with his mom, basically. There's also a moment like when Vash is checking on Rolo after he's been shot, like wake up type of thing. There's this like ambient music playing during that time. It was so good.
Yeah.
So this episode I really liked. It had a really good like mood to it the whole time.
I legit went from like the beginning of this episode going like, when we review this, is this going to be like my least favorite episode we watched so far? And then by the end, I'm like, no, that was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah, it is just like this build up and then a really good payoff at the end of the episode. So I really enjoyed it. If the rest of the show's written like that, whew, that's great. And then it's just a pleasure to watch.
I was trying to figure out too, and I think I got it, what the purpose of this episode is, because obviously, like, you could just have an episode that's supposed to be entertaining. I thought that's possibly what this episode was going to be, when it was just a lot of like shooting and running and stuff like that. But by the end, it kind of just gives us the hint that Wolfwood is connected to this somehow. But also, it just kind of shows how bad these people are. It kind of illustrates some of Vash's past, but also illustrates the villains in the show and just like how morally fucking bankrupt they are. Like that they're willing to, engineer soldiers out of children, essentially, that will kill their whole town. Kind of paints
through the guise
picture
of religious sacrifice. Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if that was their doing or the town that was like.
I almost feel like they were in cahoots in that, but
Yeah, I know, but I don't know if they were saying that whole rhetoric to get the town behind doing that or not. I don't know if they actually believe in that stuff, because when he even asked if that girl's like a sacrifice like him, she said she's an angel. I don't know if she's saying that because she actually believes she's that, or to him, like, we're not the same. Like, to you and your people, like, I'm an angel. Like, I don't know, because we don't have the context, but I kind of felt like, because at first when she's talking about sacrificing people to this beast or whatever, it's good because God wants that and stuff like that. I was like, that just sounds like a cult, essentially. So
exactly.
And it sounds like that the doctor and them are just taking advantage of
fueling that
to get something from it. So
for sure.
I don't know.
And then I mean, outside of just the quote unquote camera play in the episode, I mean, everything about it was very very movie-like, and I really enjoyed that. So,
I've already been pretty clear about it, but like in the beginning, and I felt the same way last episode too. But I ended up liking this episode more than the last episode. But halfway through the episode, I'm like, "Where's this going? What are we doing? Like, is this just a filler episode? Or are they just kind of having fun? Is this like skull-headed cyborg guy? Like, just some." Vacant enemy they got to fight, but then as this other timeline story's playing along, which I was like, I don't know what's going on here, finally starts connecting. I was like, oh, this is actually getting interesting. The action sequence is actually probably the least interesting of the episode after the story, because once the story kind of unfolds, I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of a creepy scenario that played out. And it's interesting too how there's this story of pretty much the exact same scenario, just without the details that Roberto's telling Meryl.
Yeah.
That I thought was wrapped nicely in the sense of how they executed that. The scene where he's chasing after them and shooting was cool because, again, the animation in this is fantastic, especially, with this big hulking dude running around just unloading everywhere.
Especially the alley with all the fabric. That was wild looking. Yeah.
In the scene where Wolfwood hit the ground and then threw a cloth or blanket or something over him, and then when it blew in the wind, he's already gone. I thought it was a really neat visual thing that they did style-wise. But that was all really cool looking. Vash is doing what he does. He runs, and the animation of that's always really fantastic. But like last episode, I was like, yeah, the cross is like a cool gun, but that seems like something you got to get set up or whatever. So it's cool to actually see him in movement with it.
Yeah.
In motion. Because I was like, how do you use that like practically in combat? I get like when you need to have like a flourish and just go boom and kill somebody. I get that. But like, can you fight somebody who's moving? And in this, he's mostly just kind of running and every once in a while popping shots or whatever. I did think the style of when he shot Rolo in the head was dope looking though, because he shoots the beam through him.
Yeah, It's also weird because he like drinks that fluid beforehand, so he must be somewhat connected to that gun physically. Then
Yeah, I was wondering if the fluid had anything to do with the gun or to get him off the ground because he was all fucked up before. So I don't know if he was drinking that too.
good question. Yeah, I
To
don't know.
like heal. I mean, I've been playing a lot of Breakpoint lately, and every time I'm shot up, I just hit myself with a little injection, and I'm fine. So I was thinking maybe he was doing the same thing. But then yeah, he shoots the gun right after that, and he's using the laser, and I don't know how that thing's charged, how it's powered.
Yeah,
But I really enjoy the different positions he has to be in to use the gun though. So he's using like a machine gun, he has to hold like down here.
Yeah.
But then when he shot the laser, he's like holding it behind him, almost like he's doing like an uppercut and then shooting it into his head. It's just really cool looking. Like when it comes to style, the show's got a lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
And that whole situation with that gun's really cool when that's used. Even though it was towards an enemy that you start off going like, who the fuck's this Bane looking motherfucker?
Yeah.
And ending with like, oh, that's kind of like tragic that this dude is like somebody that Vash failed essentially, and was experimented on. So it kind of makes sense when he does shoot him. It's like, yeah, it makes sense. You're not going to bring him back. There's no happy part about that. It's just bleak, but I like the payoff. Yeah, I don't know. I like this episode a lot too, and I think the foreshadowing was a lot of fun. When he's telling that story, I was like, they're going to run into a monster in this episode.
Yeah.
And so it did surprise me because they did run into that, but it wasn't in the sense of like a Scooby-Doo mystery I was expecting
Right.
it to be. So yeah, that was cool. And then yeah, we're getting more and more hints that Wolfwood's got something going on. I doubt he's going to be the villain they're trying to paint him as. I feel like he's gonna deviate from whatever the plan is. But there's no way to know so far. But
Yeah, they keep talking about him, but they don't really like his motivation is never discussed at all.
yeah,
So
it's just implied that he's working with that person who we saw with the other people
Yeah.
who are the bad guys, and they're aware of him and possibly have a connection, the scientist or the doctor at least. And so, we'll find out when we do. But it's interesting that 2 episodes now, they're laying that on pretty thick. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, good episode.
definitely.
I've liked all 5 episodes of the show so far. It's funny because anytime I read some comments on the show, people seem mixed, or if they're positive on it, they have to bring up that, like I'm kind of doing right now, that people don't like this show and they don't understand. And I think probably a lot of that, and this is just speculation, if you're one of these people too, let me know in the comments, but I feel like a lot of people are just like really into the original. This happens a lot in everything, but like in video games, movies, remakes in general, people are very critical of anything that's touching something that they like. And if it deviates, they get upset. And I don't know how much this deviates. I feel like it probably deviates a lot watching this. I don't think the original show was like this. But
yeah, I mean, even casting wise, the old man was a girl in the original. So
but unless they said they're gonna remake Trigun verbatim exactly like the original, if this is just someone else's like version, their story of something that's connected to that story, and this is their interpretation, if it's not for you, it's not for you. I get that, but I think they're doing a really good job. It's kind of following the same philosophy and principles that Trigun did, with Vash not being like someone who wanted to harm people and stuff like that. So it's carrying that forward. He looks different for sure, but I don't mind it. I think it, if his character acted differently, that look would be different for me, but his personality works with it. But yeah, I don't know, because I don't have that. I can't be as critical on it, but I do see a lot. The discussion on the show being pretty mixed.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a good thing I didn't watch the original show, so I can watch this like with fresh eyes, and just kind of enjoy. Because I see people talking shit about the CGI too, and I'm like, compared to what?
There's a large contingent of people who just CGI and anime equal bad.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. So.
I mean, I love Berserk, and I liked the new seasons of Berserk, even though there's the CGI in there, and the movies. And the CGI is not in those movies is not as good as this at all. It's not even close.
No. Yeah.
And I still accepted it. Would I have preferred it being animated? 100%.
Sure.
But it's all about the storytelling for me. I can look past, like, I watched anime in the 90s. So, I mean, like, I can look past limitations of animation.
I mean, I think a good example of that is the CG in Nier is like very jarring.
It's not good.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the opposite of this.
But that doesn't make me not want to watch the show.
Sure.
I just am disappointed in that decision.
Yeah,
So,
it's just like, oh, that's too bad, and then you just move on with your life. But like this is like a treat to watch. I think the animation's fantastic. I saw somebody on Twitter making a case that like the animation's like not only like they don't prefer CGI, they're saying it's like it was bad CGI.
I've seen a couple of people try saying that, and that's just not correct.
Well, and for me, I'm just like, if you don't like CGI, that's fine. I feel like if you don't like the 3D model stuff, that's fine. But like
100%.
compared to what anime, or are we saying this is bad?
Yeah.
It's kind of, I think, in the upper echelon of like 3D animated animes I've seen.
Yeah, it's really good, for sure.
And so, yeah, anyway, quick thing I wanted to discuss because I think it's interesting seeing that kind of like contrast between people who like it, people who don't like it, but the people who don't like it being mostly upset with the CGI, but also, you know, I can understand the purists, whatever, but I could encourage you to just not watch it then if you're not into it. But the people who do like it, I feel bad for it because they have to like validate their like for it or like explain why they like it. And I'm just like, no, just like it. Like if you like it, cool, whatever. Like I think it's fun. So
Yeah, I mean, preferences are preferences. Like, you'll have them. It's fine. But I mean, you also got to be kind of fair about it too. You know, like if it's not for you, that's just what it is. Like,
that's my whole thing. I don't care if people like or dislike things. I just want them to be, you know, fair and you know, use your words. And if you want to discuss it, then talk about it. But the people are like, oh, fuck this, blah, blah, blah. It's boring.
Yeah.
It's boring.
And I kind of get like the CG thing a little bit, but I think where I agreed with that changed when the technology has gotten where it is at this point.
Sure.
Like there's a lot of good CG. Most companies just don't use good CG. This is purely CG, so there's no jarringness to it. It's just fluid.
I even get if you don't like CG in general, not anime CG, but just like you don't like you know, Pixar or stuff like that. You're not into it. You want to see like animation. I get that. You're living in a bad time for that. But to say like this is bad,
Well, I love like animation. Like that's I'm always like, especially when people pull off some crazy stuff with animation. Like a good example of this, like recently, a lot of like the One Piece episodes will be like meh throughout, but then a scene happens and they just kind of let someone just go like do whatever they want with it, and some crazy animation has been coming
add
out
as many
of it.
frames as they want.
Or like, you know, as many like unstable, like for example, there was an attack that happened in one, and like his arm was never in the same spot in the frames. But like the action sequence was like super cool looking because of the way the style was in it. It didn't look like the rest of the show at all though. So and I like that kind of stuff, but I mean, that's just an appreciation of art at that point. So
Well, they do a lot of really good mixtures of CG and animation in Demon Slayer. They blend it a lot.
and Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like the camera will be moving around like a scene, but then like you could tell the character's like animated, and they're kind of like, you know, they animated the character jumping over things, and they put all the things coming at him. And I think it's a really good blend of the two things.
Definitely.
So there's room for it. I just get if, you know, people aren't.
It's only going to get better too. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Anyways, that was a bit of a tangent, but
Yeah, but relevant to the show. So
Yeah.
overall, I liked it though. You liked it.
oh yeah, it was great. I've been really enjoying the show. I haven't seen any, like I said before, I haven't really seen anything the studio's done before. And what it kind of gives me, I was thinking about it this episode, what it kind of gives me vibes of is, I've forgotten the name. Appleseed. Appleseed, but those were movies.
Back in the day, yeah.
But those were like really cool, like 3D, like purely 3D anime movies. And
Every once in a while, I
dope.
see like a new advertisement for like a new Appleseed. I'm like, they just keep making those. Like, that's so weird.
I'm way out of loop on
Because
that.
I remember like way back in the day, like the first 3D Appleseed that came out. And back then I was like, oh, well, this is crazy. And nowadays I'm just like, you know, a lot of anime's 3D now. So it's, you know, it's kind of worn off the novelty of that.
Yeah, I mean, it saves them money. 3D is cheaper to do than 2D. So
Sure, you make a 3D model and you're not
just use it.
You're not spending the same time animating every single frame. You can just kind of program it or do mocapping, and yeah, it makes sense in the long run. But anyway, anything else you want to say on it?
Nope. Looking forward. You know, these little adventures are fun and all. I do want some more meat on the main story, but
yeah, if I do have any criticism so far, the last two episodes, even though I'm glad we're away from that town that I was complaining about in the beginning, the two episodes have been good, but I do feel like both of the last 2 episodes, the beginning up until the middle of these episodes, I start thinking like, is this a filler episode? Is this a filler episode? And by the end, I'm like, no, it wasn't. That made sense. We're getting somewhere. But I am looking for a bigger, a stronger element to the story to take place. Something that changes a character, or it's only 5 episodes so far, but like it's only one season as well. So like, when are we going to get this story really rolling? Which I think we got in episode 3 with like Knives showing up and taking out a bunch of people. But I want to get that story moving.
Yeah, I don't. And to be clear, I don't think it's like they're doing a bad job, but I do like it is like almost on that line. It's on that line,
Yep.
But I'm sure if the pacing stays like this, even like it'll be fine. I'm sure there'll be some payoffs, because even like when Knives showed up, that scene alone, I was like, okay.
I just feel huge. Like the momentum we got going right now is like you said, fine. If the rest of the show's like this, I'm gonna enjoy it. But I feel like we're just kind of on this line of like the show could be fine or get really good. And I'd like it to pick up to the point where I need to watch the next season.
Yeah, for sure. Assuming it doesn't just end. So
sure. Yeah, we'll see. Let us know in the comments what you guys think of episode 5 of Trigun Stampede. Did you like it? Did you not like it? When it came to our discussion or a little tangent about where people are at, where are you at on the show? If you dislike the show, let me know. Like I'm not against disagreeing on things, but I would definitely like to know your perspective. And if you're liking the show, tell me why you're liking the show. But what did you think of this episode? What did you think of the payoff? What did you think of what happened to Rolo? Where do you think things are going? And yeah, let me know what you think about in the comments below. I've been Seth, this has been Chevy, and until the next episode, we will talk to you guys later.